Order.
There.
Everybody's here. You can stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you and good evening. Welcome to the February 3rd, 2026 meeting of the Board of Education. It's technically a special meeting, but it's a rescheduled meeting from our committee, the whole meeting from last week that was canceled because of the snow. To accommodate everyone's schedules and to make get our long-range facilities planning done first, I'd like to entertain a motion to reorder the agenda to put the policy after the long-range planning work.
So motion to reorder the agenda to move item 3, policy reading, to immediately before public comment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries unanimously. So we will go right into, that will become item 6, and we will go into item 4 at this point, adjourn to executive session. Oh, I'm sorry, roll call. Ms. Fleming's not here tonight, so I'm not going alphabetically, I'm just going in order. So, Mr. Koba?
Here?
Mr. Scobie?
Here.
Ms. Wilhelm?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Here.
I'm here, Sue Glennon. Ms. Edmonds?
Here.
Ms. Tedros?
Here.
Ms. Wolf-Whiten?
Here.
Ms. Flowers?
Here.
And Ms. Doyle will be joining us after our executive session. All right, so a motion to move into executive session, Ms. Wolf-Whiten?
Move that the Milford Board of Education enter into executive session for the purpose of an update on viable land options for the long-range facilities plan. Invited are Mayor Richard Smith and the following Perkins Eastman Associates. Mark McCarthy, Principal in Charge. Patrick Davis, Planning Principal. Mike Berger, Design Principal. And Lauren Giamundo, Project Architect.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms.
Ms. Glennon, are Mr. Brennan and I allowed to come?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, we have to add that.
Also invited
A real special meeting.
are Dr. Kataya.
We'll see you in 90 minutes.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we are going to move up to conference room B upstairs for this.
You guys can follow us.
Motion to return to public session.
Motion to return to public session?
Is there a second?
Second.
Is Blessing back there? Did anybody check?
He should be. I didn't check, but, is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are back in public session at 7:54, and let the record will show that Ms. Doyle has joined us virtually. All right, so we're going to have our consultants from Perkins Eastman provide us with some information regarding their findings and their work to date.
All right, well, thank you again for having us. So before we dive in, just to sort of give a little bit of background, we'll introduce ourselves here in just a second. But the first charge that was given to us as part of this effort was to really evaluate the high school portfolio, in particular, an analysis to figure out are there viable parcels and properties across the district that could accommodate a singular high school. So we're going to spend the bulk of our time today going through that, and then we'll preview some of the next steps in terms of where we're going for the high schools, but also for elementary and middle schools, and preview some of the exciting website engagement type things coming up. So just to start, again, nice to see you all again. Patrick Davis, a principal with Perkins Eastman. I'm joined again.
Hi, I'm Mark McCarthy, also a principal with Perkins Eastman.
And then Mike and Lauren.
Mike Bernhardt,
Yeah.
another principal of Perkins Eastman.
Lauren Giamondo, project architect.
Great. Mark.
Okay. So we'll go through some of the criteria. So as Patrick said, our charge was to look for viable sites that could accommodate a consolidated high school. In this case, we were looking at about, using as a target about 1,600 students, which would be the more or less rounding up of the two high school enrollment. These are some of the criteria that we use to look at, does the property have, is it big enough? Does it have adequate space to host a school? What would be the acquisition? So we looked at both properties that are for sale as well as properties that are privately owned. We looked at public space as well, just to be as thorough as we could be. We looked at whether it was suitable for construction. So is the site, are there wetlands, are there steep slopes, other characteristics of a site that impact cost or ability to build on a site. Anything about zoning considerations that we needed to consider, as well as travel distance. In other words, what would be the impact to existing students if they had to travel, rather than two schools they do now, to one consolidated site. So in order to do that, before we could really look at what sites worked, we needed to know a little bit more about what would actually be the high school. So we actually took the time to build a program, build out all the spaces we needed to do a 1,600 student high school. So this is just a snippet of that. And then we even then take that a step further and look graphically at what goes into kind of a state-of-the-art high school. So what you see here graphically, what we sometimes call chiclets, are all those spaces, right? This is what we call the net program. So without the corridors, without the mechanical space and things like that, what are the things that go in there? Classrooms, science labs, the bigger boxes are those auditorium, the gymnasiums, cafeteria, anything like that. So we get a sense of, when we're out there starting to analyze potential sites, how big does the school need to be? Beyond what the building itself needs to be, we also looked at, it's a high school, it has a lot of program, a lot of outdoor program. So this just graphically represents what we consider to be, at a minimum, the fields that we would need to support a high school like this. So baseball fields, softball, a multi-purpose competition field with a regulation track, at least one practice field, likely, ideally, you'd probably have even more than that, and 4 tennis courts. What we, not showing graphically here, but what we included in our study was also an idea of what the parking count would need to be. So at a high school, staff, visitors, probably seniors, sometimes juniors also, so the parking starts to get up there, as well as the circulation. So when we're working with the high school, we have cars, we have buses, we have visitors, students driving, so all those things impact a site's viability, not just the size of it, but is it located in a place in town that's accessible? Can we get in and out of the site in a safe and orderly way?
So one of the criteria that Mark mentioned was access. Obviously, we want to make sure we are, to the extent possible, minimizing travel impacts on students. So as a starting point, we sort of just mapped out where the different high school populations are living for both of the 2 high schools. And as we were going through each of the individual sites, we modeled the impact on travel distance. It was a core criteria for us, so that, for all the way on the east side or all the way on the west side, obviously there's a subset of students that would have a significant travel distance. So we were generally trying to look for the sort of the center of the district for properties, knowing that access would be a core consideration for families. So one of the things, I think we're missing the slide, but we went through all of the parcels within the district and went through every parcel that was over 15 acres. So Mark said 40 acres, but we looked at 15 acres just in case there were different parcels that you could sort of adjacent to each other. You could put fields on one, a building on the other. And what it really came down to is we started to go through one by one. There were a lot of things that ruled a lot of sites out. A, some of them weren't big enough. B, we overlaid things like wetlands, which is a significant consideration here in Milford. There were a lot of parcels that we had to take out of the running because there's wetlands, and building out wetlands is obviously either not possible or has some significant constraints. So after we did that, we also went through the process of meeting with the town planning department and understanding the sort of long-term sort of plans for some of the parcels. There are some that have gone for sale, some that are sort of in development. And really what that boiled down to is there really were no what we consider viable options for the high school, a singular high school. Moving 2 schools into one is obviously, as you all know, a major shift, and it takes a lot to do that. And when you're going to do that, you want to make sure there's a appropriately sized property that can accommodate all the program. Students can access it. When we started to go through all the criteria, there just wasn't one that checked the boxes to accommodate one school. So our recommendation at this point is there's no near-term options to accommodate the singular high school based on the analysis. We literally went parcel by parcel and really tried to make sure we crossed all of our T's and dotted all of our I's. So our recommendation at this point is to not move forward with a single high school based on our analysis of land. But we want to make sure that we do evaluate the long-term sort of viability of the high school buildings themselves. So if you all agree, our next step would be to dig deeper into the existing high schools and start to identify, are there improvements that could be made at those schools to enhance the student experience, align with the programmatic vision. So, we don't want to leave, we're not done with high schools if that's not the sort of period of the conversation. It's kind of a comma, and now we want to go to the next steps of really digging in and start to figure out, what are those things that could really enhance the experience at each of the 2 individual high schools. So that would be our next step in terms of making sure we have a clear plan for the high school buildings in the portfolio. But there's also some additional next steps on top of that. We do want to start digging closer into the middle schools and elementary schools. So the initial RFP had some criteria to look at for middle schools. Are there opportunities to go from 3 to 2 middle schools in the district? But then also to the similar point around the high school buildings, are there capital improvements that can be made to really improve those conditions of the building, improve the experience, improve access to program space? So in February, we're going to be sharing some of that analysis on the middle schools. And then in March, we would do the same type of analysis for elementary schools, looking at the portfolio of elementary schools and starting to identify some capital strategies for those. And then in April, coming back and sort of trying to tie everything back up, looking at high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools and starting to build out a long-term strategy for the district. And just sort of one, sort of lead with a sort of next step in terms of communication. And the next day or so, we're going to be publishing a public-facing website, which will have all of the information we're using as part of this plan. So there'll be a full page with all the resources, all the presentations we've given or giving, all the data dashboard that'll start to allow you to look at individual schools and start to see some of the core data. I've shared this before, but the district has done a lot of great work, even leading up to this project. There's been facility conditions assessments, there's a demographic study. What we want to do is try to bring all that together into one singular place, so we have a holistic view of the conditions in the district and individual schools. Then also have this resource where all these things can live on one singular site. So that'll be launching in the very near future. So that is what we have as an update for this evening.
Thank you. Could you just, for the public, I'm not sure I heard you speak to the fact that you did look at the law and the foreign sites to see if they could accommodate a new building for the one.
Yep, so we looked at both of the sites, we analyzed both, and we just couldn't fit the entire program. There's some wetlands considerations as well on the foreign site.
The
Yeah,
law
on the
site too,
foreign
so
site,
both
yeah.
of them.
We also looked, I'll just, in full transparency, we looked at this site as well, and the Harborside Middle School site, just combined, it just didn't work from a size standpoint. It was an initial request. There was about 20 acres combined between this and the middle school site, and it just couldn't fit the full program.
Okay. So do we have questions on everything, not the next, we're going to talk about next steps specifically, but do you have any questions on the process or the information relating to the high school piece? Yes, Mr. Scobie?
Oh, quick one. First, just thank you for all this information. I really appreciate this. And I don't know, this might be more a question for you guys, but the website that you're planning on launching, you guys know I've been very vocal about that community outreach aspect, point. How are we planning on spreading the word about that website?
We'll do a push digitally.
Okay, I was hoping that was the
Yeah.
answer.
And we have some opportunities. Parent conferences are around the corner. We'll have QR codes that could take people right to the website. We are also working with this team on public engagement opportunity as well. So there'll be some face-to-face time as well as the access to the digital, pardon me.
Cool.
I should also say on the highlight the website, you can translate it to 8 different languages, so you can actually literally just click a button and translate it to multiple languages. So
That's
we're
very
going to
cool.
make it as accessible as possible.
That was it. Thank you.
Other questions about the high school piece? Ms. Boynton?
Not so much a question as a comment, but I think we've been working on this process for so long, right? It's been 2 years now, maybe?
Almost 3.
Almost 3, okay, time is skewed, but, asking so many questions, talking about so many possibilities, hearing from the community, having really positive conversations, having not so positive conversations. But I thank you so much for the work that you have done. And I think, we've been talking in hypotheticals for so very long. It's nice to have a first bit of concrete information. And I'm sure that I speak from other people, for other people in the community that, wow, it would be great to know everything at one time, but it's great to have this first step. And to know, where we are with at least one aspect, and now to look at what might come next. So it's great now that we have concretes and tangible things that we can talk about, not just what ifs.
Any other questions or comments on the high school piece? Ms. Doyle, do you have anything to add at this point on the high school piece? I know you.
I want to say thank you to Perkins Eastman for all the information. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I think it's disappointing that we aren't able to do so, but it's the realistic situation that we are living in the community that we do, and the Bible sites don't exist. And I think this is a great place for us to move forward and to know that we have explored all our options in terms of this one specific area, and so we can plan for the future. And I think this is a good next step that we can look and see what we can do at Law and Foreign specifically to provide the best experience for students going forward. So thank you.
Any others? So do we have a consensus that we move forward with exploring the two high schools? What we need to do to, I mean, the motion was, so just to circle everybody back to the motion that was made last June, that actually was the springboard for the RFP. Ms. Wolf-Boyton made a motion that the Milford Board of Education approve the following long-range facilities planning concepts to move forward to an RFP. Our primary concept would be to have 1 new high school, 2 middle schools, and 6 elementary schools. If viable land to build a new high school is unavailable, the contingency concept would be, what do we need to do to our 2 high schools to make them sustainable? Suggestions for 2 or 3 middle schools, how to best configure 6 elementary schools. And that was passed unanimously after a second by Mr. Fermender. So this kind of frames what the next steps would be. I mean, that was discussed last June. So if we are in agreement that it doesn't seem that we can move forward with 1 high school, then we move forward with the rest of this this concept to have further discussion about these other pieces. And I'm assuming that, you know, you've given us your suggestions for next steps going forward. I'm assuming that as we move forward with the other pieces, you're still working in the background on the high school
Yep.
piece.
Yeah, we should have made that more clear, yeah.
Right,
What we're
so
gonna
that
dig
come the point in time when they are ready to share a full master plan, it will include all the pieces put together that we will then discuss further, certainly have more public engagement on that piece, which is very important. We've all spoken about that, the importance of that, and I think we'll hear a little bit about some ideas for you to be boots on the ground, as you suggested that you do, as we have some more concreteness to what we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, we're looking forward to supporting those efforts. We're coordinating with the superintendent.
So is there a consensus from everyone that this is the direction we need to move in?
Yes.
Anybody disagree? Everybody agrees?
Agree.
Yes, yes. Okay, I'm seeing everybody shaking their head yes. So the next piece of the agenda would be the next steps, would be the next piece to discuss, which I think we still need you here for. So I have some, the timeline that had been originally developed. So on the front is the timeline up to this point that had been developed, and then on the back would be going forward, what we're talking about, what we need to develop, basically. Do you want copies?
Sure.
No. Here's 3. Okay. If you could give one to the, cut. So we're looking at February 2026, so that's where we are today. Perkins is attending the Board of Ed executive session and just presented to us. So we're moving forward from that point. And you spelled out some suggestions in your presentation.
Yeah, so we were thinking of sort of going grade by grade, band by grade band. So we would focus the next time we're back with you on the middle school evaluation. So as part of that, we're going through every single floor plan, all the sort of capital needs across the district, or across the buildings, and starting to simulate what could happen if you do go from 3 to 2, again, sort of modeling travel distance impacts. Is there site availability to fit the program? It's a similar idea to what we shared for the high school, building what a middle school program should be. So what's the spaces that are needed for a comprehensive middle school? As we start to go through that, identifying of the parcels, are there 2 that make sense? What are the impacts in terms of cost, travel distance impacts, things like that. So we would plan to come back and share some of that analysis on the middle schools for March, and then similar concept and idea for the February.
February.
And then March would be the elementary school, similar idea of potentially looking at the portfolio of elementary, are there opportunities to think about combining two schools together, can use capital to sort of support that. Then also, again, what are those impacts of doing that, so you all are informed on some of the challenges, opportunities, constraints. But ultimately, we'd have middle schools February, elementary schools in March, and then April, to your point, bring back the high school and sort of package everything up into a long-term strategy.
Okay. Dr. Kutai, did you have anything you wanted to share about that?
No, ma'am.
And you have developed some ideas for that kind of informal public engagement where they can be out and about. You mentioned
So
parent-teacher
we
conferences.
are in the process of compiling events that are occurring throughout the schools
For
in
the
the
rest of the
months
school year.
of March and April primarily. So I'm looking at a chart that principals are filling in. So just for an example, there's a STEAM night at Meadowside. That might be a good night to show up. There is various PTA, PTO meetings. We have musicals coming up. We have a family math night at JFK. So we are compiling so that I think it's important that they go out and at least have some work done so that it's not just the same information that existed through December. So that's why we're landing in the March, April
Right.
time. So that they've done some of the work on high school, possibly middle school in February is the plan for middle school. And then in March, they can go out and engage with the public in smaller settings and then use that information to make recommendations.
Okay. I think that's a good point, that right now we don't have any new information to be sharing. It's all the same information that we had when we did all of the public outreach that we did last year with the, we have surveys, focus groups, 2 community conversations, public comment at meetings. So we do have a lot of data and information from those pieces that are all compiled again on, and we all got a drive that have the information on it as well. We've been talking for months now about, board members, new board members bringing themselves up to speed with that information, and certainly asking for help if you need assistance consuming it. There are people that could sit with you if need be.
We're happy
but-
to spend time with individual board members to go over some of those documents or audits or reviews so that we can help you understand them better. So just reach out to us. I do want to point out that in the timeline, we are hoping to shoot for a vote on a master plan by April 27th.
Right.
So that is still the goal.
Oh, thumbs up for Ms. Tedros. So do we want to, my thinking is that we would expect to see Perkins here for the majority of our meetings moving forward for the foreseeable future. You'll become our new best friends.
If you'll have us, yes.
Yes, Ms. Edmonds?
I just have a curiosity. When you show up to, let's say, the musical, what's your strategy? What does that look like?
So, we like to actually attend meetings like that because people are already coming out. We actually find that we get pretty good participation that way. It is a little bit different when they're sort of coming for another purpose, so it often becomes a little more informational. Here's some resources to share with you. We can direct them to the website, things like that. We often find that awareness is probably the most important thing. I think a lot of people don't want, no offense, but don't watch board meetings, don't follow these things. So I think just spreading the word. You guys have done a great job over the last few years, so I don't want to discount all of that engagement. But a lot of those sort of initial informal events are more about increasing awareness and sharing resources, and then that's how people can get a little more engaged with sort of following the conversation. So that's sort of the primary focus is sort of information sharing and making sure people understand all of the considerations we're looking at. We'll have posters and flyers and all sorts of resources, but people are generally not there for an hour standing in front of a table, right? It's a very different activity, so it's more making sure people are informed of the work.
That makes sense. So what I'm hearing you say is that it's informational, you're not collecting feedback.
We may collect some informal sort of feedbacks around, we've done like bean counts and put your bean in this sort of priority bucket, things like that are sort of quicker, sort of just, you can do it as you're walking down the hallway, but it's less around like rolling up our sleeves for 3 hours with someone and sort of drawing out an idea. It's, you know, but we'll get some high level priority type things, but less around drilling very specifically into a unique circumstance.
Mr. Davis, your team and our team have been talking about the viability of a survey,
Yeah.
QR code, quick grab of information, Ms. Edmonds, so we're still entertaining that, because I think it'll be specific to what events they are gonna be at. A PTA meeting may be more conducive to
Yeah.
that than maybe a musical. So we are entertaining the idea of a quick QR code grab of a couple of questions.
Yeah, and certainly when we get closer to the master, actually discussing the master plan, you know, we can have more formal engagement where something we could do like an open house where maybe some tables are set up with photos and the data where the board members can be there, and the consultants can be there, and we can interact with the public that might come in for an event like that. There's always a formal public hearing, just allowing members of the public to come and have their say. So those are certainly things that would most likely happen or could be considered. At the very least, a public hearing would be something that we would probably want to do. We did one of those, I think we did one of those.
So Ms. Glennon, we're just working backwards. There are 6 board meetings in February, March, and April. And the last one of April, it is the hope that this board will take action. So that leaves 5-ish board meetings of work. But there's also other work.
Yes.
There are some required pieces of work that we have to get done. So do you mind if the board discusses if it wants to entertain special meetings? Or do you believe the 5 meetings with shared work will be sufficient? Just so for planning purposes.
So that's, I think, so aside from any public engagements that might be separate from that, so like a public hearing might be held on a separate night.
All right,
as
so
well.
I'm getting really technical here, only because I want to help. So April 13th is a board meeting, and April 27th is a board meeting. That leaves about 9 school days. If you're going to have a discussion of what a draft plan could look like on the 13th, then I would imagine that between the 13th and 27th, you may want to have that public thing. And then that would give board members an opportunity to engage with the community, to hear what their thoughts are on the draft thinking, so that you are best informed on the 27th. That's how I'm seeing those 2 weeks. So I would imagine the board should entertain, what kind of time do you need in February and March in order to draft the plan on the 13th, get feedback in those 9 days, and then make a decision on the 27th. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
If you're looking at a calendar, you'll see.
Yes, so
that
aside from
technically gives you
April,
4 meetings. And I'm just thinking we have the accountability presentation, we have the safety security presentation, all the required pieces of board meetings, so.
right, we do have our other work that has to also get done. I will say that we typically do try to hold the off Mondays for special meetings for the board, because Monday's kind of our day to meet. So it's, I think, for many, it's an accommodating day. I know a few board members have mentioned to me other days in the week that don't work for them because of other obligations, which is understandable. So, the other consideration is whether we need, are these meetings that we need the consultants here for, and what their availability might be. So would it make sense at this point to ask everybody to hold all the off Mondays until we firm things up? Or do you have other suggestions?
No, I guess I just want to get a sense from the board. Do you need more than 4 Mondays? The 4 Mondays are designated already for your meeting. Does the board sense that you will need more time than that?
Can I ask a clarifying? Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Go ahead.
So, February is middle school, March is, so when will you so in April, you're coming with your
Final
final,
recommendations.
so, do we want that to be a special meeting? When they come with their final, so that that one meeting can be all about, because if doing a special meeting when we don't have all the information in February or March doesn't seem like
So do I
effective
understand
use of
it?
time.
This is a good question for clarification. So I'm understanding that in February, that this board will actually be coming to a conclusion as to whether it'll be 2 or 3 middle schools. They're not waiting till April.
Yeah, we could share that, recommendation by that point, if there's back and forth in terms of, hey, you should go explore this. Sometimes we
Right.
find that there may be,
So my understanding is there are going to be 3 small bites at the apple. The board just took the first bite,
Yep.
2 high schools. Then in February, they're going to take a bite at the middle school.
Correct.
And then elementary.
Yep.
And then you're going to take those dialogues, decisions that the board has made, and now create a master plan, which
Correct.
includes timelines,
Yep.
where to go
Implementation.
first,
Yep.
what to consider. So it's not just a configuration plan.
It's everything.
It's,
Correct.
okay.
Yep.
Are you and I understanding that
It
similarly?
doesn't make sense to have multiple meetings when we don't have the whole picture, I guess is my point. Like,
So we have to come up with one plan. So the plan is going to be based on 2 high schools, and then whatever our decision is for middle school, and then the 6 elementary schools.
and then they're packaging it.
They have to package that, so we have to make a decision. We've already pretty much decided on the elementary school piece, that's part of the motion. So the last thing to consider, to decide, is 2 or 3 middle schools. The hardest piece, yes. So that's, and they need, before they can package a plan, they need to know what that is. So we're looking at that discussion in February. So the question is, do the next 2 meetings in February, is that enough time for us to consider those decisions? And again, we already have,
With regular business.
hmm?
With regular business happening.
It has to happen with the regular business, and we already have all the data, and, we have to go back and review the data that we've already developed for that piece, in terms of, all the different pieces of the middle school programming. So, the question is 2 meetings in February enough for us to come to that conclusion, or do we need a special meeting in February? Ms. Wilpointon?
I would say that we need a special meeting in February, maybe even a special meeting at least put on the calendar in March, and then we can choose to use it or not.
So there are no more Mondays in February because
Yeah.
of President's Day? So you couldn't use a free Monday.
Okay,
So the next free Monday is March 2nd.
okay, well, that sounds like a good plan. Right, that we have our regular meeting on the 9th, and then maybe we put a tentative meeting on for the 16th?
But
And
if we
if-
have to vote on the middle school.
We could do that on March 2nd.
Oh, we can, okay.
So February 9th agenda looks lighter. The 23rd is pretty heavy. So I do think that you'll need a 3rd meeting on middle school, which would be March 2nd. So February 9, February 23, March 2nd, is that what I'm hearing you propose, Ms. Wilpointon?
Yes, I mean, everything has taken longer than we originally anticipated. So, and I think that, that deserves to be a thoughtful conversation, because that could potentially involve a really big decision. So, not that it's not all big, but yes, I propose that we add the 2nd, is that what you said? The 2nd, March 2nd?
Is the next available Monday.
And then I think that we should probably put on the calendar, like, if needed, on the 16th of March. Right, because if we have to
I
come up with
agree.
our final decision, and then they have to have time to present a final plan to us, which will have to be what, on the 13th of April 13th?
Right, so what I'm hearing you say is add March 2nd,
Uh-huh.
Monday, March 2nd, which would be technically a middle school decision.
Mhm.
And then we have the 9th, the 3rd, potentially the 16th, and the 23rd.
The 23rd is a very heavy meeting. It's the accountability report, and then we might need to move some healthy food certification that night, but still doable. Just,
Well, we have March 30th then, too.
we just may be having little longer meetings.
Yeah. Well, personally, my thinking is to just, the board members should have all the available Mondays, the 2nd, the 16th, the 30th, holding those on their calendars. And then even into March, into April. We may need to firm up the dates. I mean, again, we have to consult with the consultants and be sure that they're available.
And I'm sorry, when is your final recommendation supposed to be presented, the 13th of April, or?
April 13th.
April
I
13th.
would think there should be a draft so that this
Right.
board
Well,
has
that would be the
something to bring
draft,
to the
right?
public. I know, you're looking at me like you're changing the date.
No, no.
Well, that would be the draft?
Yeah.
The 13th?
That works.
That would be the draft, right?
So I'm just thinking how that lays out, right? So the 13th, there's a draft in front of the board for dialogue. Then I'm hearing the board say you want a public opportunity for input on that.
So we're,
So
right.
that
we
would be
have-
the next week, and then the 27th, there's a final dialogue and decision.
Yep, that makes sense.
So, board members, would it be appropriate to think that we would be having a public, whatever we want to call it, I'm hesitating on word, on Monday, April 20th?
Yes.
That could be the
Seems
public
reasonable.
night.
Mhm.
So 13, a draft plan, 20th, public input, 27th, board decision.
I'm wondering if it's possible, on the March 2nd, 16, and 30th, if someone from Perk and Eastman can be here at least virtually, if not physically here. Because this way, I think we should be done talking in hypotheticals. And rather than just, throw what-ifs around, have someone who can chime in and answer questions if needed to make sure we're being purposeful with our time and discussion.
Well, with this board's go-ahead, what we'll do is work with Perkins Eastman and lay out what all those meetings, draft agendas, so that we'll know what kind of information we're going to need from them and what type of dialogue that you can have. And we'll just lay out every single meeting from now through April 27th.
Not at 6:30, please.
What?
Not,
Not at 6:30, please.
some people have a
7,
hard time
maybe
getting.
7?
Well, no later than 7.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
had
no
some
later than
meetings at
7, please.
6:30. Those
I
who
would-
commute, it's very difficult to get here at
I'm just thinking
6:30.
it's going to be at 7, is that?
Yeah, I would say, yeah. And please, you're the experts, you're the ones that are doing this. If we're being out of line here, feel free to speak up and say, wait, that's not gonna work, or
Yeah, no,
whatever.
we'll work
Okay.
and see if we're done at that one of the agendas for the meetings.
Okay.
We'll make sure there's substance for each
And
one too, so
certainly,
as we go through
you know,
it, we don't wanna meet just to meet, so
Yep.
we'll map it out, and I think if there looks like a light week, maybe it's,
Yeah.
maybe we push it.
We
but-
just definitely want to make sure that it's purposeful for you to be here.
Yeah.
All meetings would have public comment on them. And certainly, if the sense is that we need another, a different, more than one of public type engagement, we can work in another event, another date. But there is a lot of work to do between now and the end of April. And as Ms. Wolf-Boyton said, everything always seems to take longer than what we anticipate, so.
Well, if, as you said, Ms. Glennon, the middle school is the hardest part. I think you just gauge how the conversation is going amongst the board, and then if you want to put a public opportunity there, that might be the right place for it.
Right, okay.
I was gonna say something similar to that. If the idea here is in February, we take another bite, well, later February, take another bite, in March, we take another bite, all to go towards building out that draft. I wouldn't mind having some community feedback on the way there as we're coming up with these bite-sized pieces, because, us sitting here getting this information, sometimes we're getting information and asked to make a vote 20 minutes later. And we do the best we can with that, but, you know, sometimes I leave here and I'm like, oh man, I really wish I had a little bit more chance to hear from the public before I made that vote. So I kind of twofold, there's that point, but in February, for example, the 9th and the 23rd, we'll be getting information. On the 2nd, in this special meeting, is this really just gonna be conversational? Do we expect to learn anything new in these meetings, or is it just to have that conversation? Does
I'm gonna
anybody
guess
have
that
any type
at
of feel on
least
that?
the 9th or 23rd, you'll have new information.
I think definitely by the 23rd, we'll probably have more substance.
Oh, since the 9th is in just a couple of
It's like
days?
5 days.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, the 2nd, though, we shouldn't,
No, we
we
will
shouldn't
have-
really anticipate new information. We should be anticipating conversation that day.
Correct.
And then like voting on another bite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I
So
think they're gonna come with a
Between the 23rd and the
recommendation.
2nd is when we can kind of gauge whether or not maybe we want to do some type of public event. It sounds like the next 3 months are going to be very busy. I don't know.
So, Mr. Davis, would it be safe to say that on February 23rd, Perkins will come with a recommendation on middle schools?
Yeah, and I
There you
think depending on where the conversation goes,
Yep.
you know, maybe we come back on the 2nd, there's more sort of, you know, you may ask us to dig deeper and we don't know what it is, but like, it could be, hey, that looks good, but what about this? The 2nd's the opportunity to come back and sort of dig deeper into some of those things.
So we are not gonna see you on a 9th?
I think just, again, make sure we have a meeting
Yep,
with
yep.
substance, it probably
Correct.
makes sense, it's a pretty quick turnaround, so. We've been working on it, but I want to make sure we're packaging things up in a way that makes sense for the conversation, so the 23rd, I think is a good opportunity to do that.
Okay.
One other thing for me, it's jumping ahead quite a bit, but that April 20th public whatever type event that we run, I don't have enough experience with the board to know if this is even possible, the way the policies run, kind of prevent it. But I know in one of the last public hearings we did, there was no allowance of any conversation from us back towards the public. They got up, they got to say their piece, but a lot of times the public were like, well, what can you say about this? And we're like, we can't, this is just for you to speak. I just think it'd be great if somebody, even if it's Perkins Eastman, could at least respond so that we don't just, hearing opinions is great, but when they're asking questions and we just doing this, it like doesn't feel beneficial to anybody, so just throwing it out there if we could possibly.
Right, well, that's the definition of a public hearing, what a true public hearing is, just for them.
I would
So,
love to just
but we
not
did
call it a
say
public
that we
hearing
could
then,
do
if we could
like
do something
a,
different.
Conversation.
you know, we discussed, what I just mentioned was the potential of some kind of like an open house almost, where you've
Right,
got.
yeah.
Personally, I think a public hearing is also beneficial, so maybe we do two things.
Yeah, I'm open to whatever gets us the most valuable feedback.
Mhm. Any other, Ms. Doyle, do you have anything to add, based on what we've all been talking about?
The only thing I might add is, I don't think I've heard the reason why we're trying to get to the date in April, which I think is because the capital improvement plan is in May. And so we want to be prepared if we were to make such a decision or make a suggestion. Is that why? Just want to confirm that.
That's correct.
That would be correct.
That's
It's at least
partially
part of
correct.
it, you know, it is part of it. And you don't have the benefit, I'm sorry, you don't have the benefit of the timeline in front of you. So it does say May 2026 master plan incorporated in the capital improvement plan as part of the timeline.
Thank you.
We'll make sure that you get a copy of this. Any other comments, questions? Okay, so we're settled on this at the moment? Okay, all right. Thank you very much for being here, we
Okay,
appreciate it.
thanks for having us.
Thank you,
Thank you.
team.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
leave those in here.
The clicker.
Clicker.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Yep. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, so the last thing on the agenda is the policy that we have, which is a time-sensitive policy because administration is about to launch in early, mid-February, I guess, the program of studies.
Yes, ma'am. So before we jump into the actual policy, I'm just gonna, for returning board members, it's a little refresher, and for new board members, just a little mini lesson on policy, what's your role in policy, what's our role related to policy. And it really stems from this board functioning under policy governance. So policy governance is a framework that defines the distinct roles and responsibilities of a Board of Ed and the Superintendent Administration. And under the model, the board focuses primarily on establishing broad governing policies, while the superintendent and my team is responsible for day-to-day management and implementation of those policies. The intent is to allow the board to operate at a strategic level, focus on vision, priorities, accountability, while empowering administration to exercise professional judgment on operational decisions related to those policies. Okay? And a core principle of policy governance, which is represented in the policy development, is that the board speaks with one voice through your adoption of policy rather than individual members. So the definition of a policy. A policy is a formal statement adopted by the Board of Ed that reflects its values, priorities, and legal responsibilities. And policies are generally broad, principles-based, and intended to be stable over time. They're the board's primary tool for governance. A regulation, and not every policy has a regulation. Sometimes it's, legislation requires a regulation, and sometimes we believe we need a regulation to best implement. A regulation is developed by the superintendent and team to describe how a policy will be implemented in practice. Regulations provide the operational details, processes, and procedures necessary to carry out board policy. Unlike policies, regulations can be adjusted by the administration as needed to respond to changing circumstances, new guidance, or evolving district needs, so long as they remain consistent with board policy. Policy comes to the board for approval, regulations don't. There are a handful of examples where regulations do come to you because it's set in statute. So the bullying policy is very specific. The school climate policy is very specific. So it blends policy and regulation into one, but that comes out of statute. So how do we develop policy? How does this document come to you with markups and reading, and et cetera? So each summer we get together based on the legislative session that just closed. And we usually get from our attorneys and other education-based attorneys a summary of all legislation that impacts educators. And slowly but surely, as the summer goes on and the fall comes, we get recommended policies, a list of recommended policies to either add or revise. And then we prioritize those for Milford Public Schools. We even keep a master tracker of all policies in Milford Public Schools. So we manage that in my office. So then the policies that are selected for that year, they actually go to a policy review committee. Mr. Altieri facilitates that committee, and that committee considers consultation from legal counsel to ensure alignment with federal, state, and local laws. To assist with new policy development, the committee examines policies adopted by other school districts, as well as model policies from CABE. Policy drafts are developed, and they come to you with red font or red strikeouts for the first read. The board engages in the first read, and at that meeting, you make suggestions of revisions, and then we go back, do a little bit more research, make the modifications you're recommending, and those come to you at a second read in blue font or blue strikeouts. And then if necessary, if there's a third round, you will see green font utilized. If required, at the end of policy adoption, our team will then go back, that same committee, and start drafting up regulations. Regulations sometimes take a little longer to develop because we try to engage the people that it mostly impacts. So sometimes it may require that we engage maybe with a teacher leader at the school level or assistant principals to help develop those regulations for implementation. So that is the general sense of policy development and the purpose. Any questions at that high level?
Ms. Flowers?
If the board wanted to review a policy that wasn't on the agenda for the year, are we able to do that?
I have to go through Ms. Glennon.
Thank you.
Okay. So you'll find in policy that a lot of the language comes from statute. In fact, if you pull some of these statutes up, you'll see verbatim language coming out of the statute. So usually the policy starts with a broad statement. Sometimes it even starts with the Milford Board of Education believes. In this case, graduation requirements are highly regulated by the state. So there isn't a lot of room, wiggle room. You'll see in the first paragraph, there are no changes until you get to the bottom, the very bottom, but I just want to review. Those three broad categories are actually found in legislative language, the number 1, 2, and 3 in the first paragraph. You'll also note in the second paragraph that the word alternative programming comes straight from legislation. It requires a school district to provide alternative programming for students to achieve a diploma. The third paragraph comes directly from statute. You'll move down to Roman numeral 2. You'll notice graduating class of 2024 to 2026. Those categories come straight from statute. Primarily, if you look up 10-221A and Public Act 15-237, and all of those are cited at the end of the policy, you will see a lot of this common language in the statute. I will now direct you to the first change that we're proposing, which is at the top of the second page. Based on some analysis of our district performance indicator and a meeting with the Chief Operating Officer of the State Department of Education, we did some analysis on the percentage of students taking advantage of some form of arts in high school. And we have such an incredible arts program, pre-K through 12, but it becomes highly optional at the high school level. So one of the more recent changes that were made by the state was the categorization of courses or requirements of credits. So at one time you might have seen you need 4 English classes, 4 math classes, 4 science classes. Now they are much more categorical in nature. So you will see that 9 credits are required for graduation in the area of humanities, including civics. Civics is called out directly in statute, and the arts is what is called out. But based on our district performance indicator, our meeting with the State Department, and our scan of other school districts, the state puts a premium, and so do we, on students accessing the arts. We believe that makes it for a well-rounded student. It's only half a credit out of 27. So we believe, out of 25, pardon me. We believe that requiring at least a half a credit of any of the arts, fine, visual, or performing arts, for graduation is a recommendation we'd like to put before this board. Further down, you will see the recommendation to add 1 credit for a student-generated portfolio aligned to the Milford Public Schools vision of the learner, beginning with the class of 2027. That does replace the, at one time, if you were on the board, you remember us doing some presentations on mastery-based diploma assessment or experiences. The state toyed around with that. And it wasn't panning out the way they were hoping. We did a lot of work in that area as aligned to the vision of the learner. In fact, all of our high school students have lessons during advisory that help them engage in portfolio building around reflecting on their own learning as a learner. And there are 4 core components of vision of the learner. So each year, students are reflecting on those 4 components. So we'd like to require this in the future we hope will become like a capstone experience for every high schooler. And we are starting small with this broad phrase called the student-generated portfolio. And so we are asking that this board entertain that being a graduation requirement. And the way that credit likely will be rolled out, these are initial conversations, is that students will develop that credit or earn that credit as they work through high school, not all in 1 year. And it will be a reflective portfolio. And hopefully, again, as I said, the future would be a capstone experience, almost like an independent study or an internship, something to that effect. So that's the big dream down the road. But categorically, this captures it large enough so that we can do that work underneath it in detail. So those are the two changes that exist on page 2. As you work down this policy under eligible credits, the language on expulsion is in statute. The equivalence of a class period, the qualifications for that is in statute. Sometimes you'll see an example, like the last paragraph on this policy, of this policy making reference to another policy. Sometimes that happens, that there's cross references, because oftentimes policies rely on other policies. On the next page, page 3, you'll see more red text, and we are asking that we become more specific about the development of student success plans. In fact, adding that a plan will include a student's career and academic choices starting in grade 6. And we're hoping that 6th graders will engage with their school counselors through some interest inventories, etc. We have a digital portfolio that we want students to start building in grade 6 and start exploring career options. This goes along with our dream of career pathways starting in middle school and requiring the infrastructure to do so. So we'd like the board to entertain language that is specific to starting that planning starting in 6th grade. There are no more changes with the exception of page 5, where you will see the update of legal references. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Kutaya. I have a question on the dates, the 2027 date. So first, my understanding then from what I understood you to say on page 2, the top of page 2, the 9 credits in humanities, that's an inclusive list which allows students to pick and choose from humanities courses. Are going to, you'd like to recommend to us that 0.5 credit in the fine visual or performing arts is a requirement then?
Yes, that's our recommendation.
Now, I would question a commence date of 2027 for something. It just gives somebody 1 year. Somebody who has a senior that going into senior year in September that might not have taken any art courses, that means that they would be required next year when they might have other plans based on their. But then also the credit for a student-generated portfolio beginning with the class of 2027.
Do you mind if I take that back to the team and
Come up with a
see the
different date?
viability of those dates?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I would question the date of 2027, that's really a
We might need to
fair
make
and
that
viable.
later.
But the other question I have, so I think you had said that the student-generated portfolio is something that students would be working on throughout their high school career?
Yes, and without Mr. Altieri here, I don't want to be quoted because it may be incorrect, but I believe we already have 2 years under our belt.
Okay.
With the student-generated portfolio. I know that we started with freshmen, then rolled it out to sophomore, so we might have even 3 years of students doing something with their reflection on vision of the learner. But what I'll do is take the feedback on the commencing of class of 27 on both of those bullet points and make those necessary changes for the next reading.
Because I would have that same concern that I stated before. And on page 3 of 6, the line just before the red is redundant to the language that's in the red, so I would suggest that be stricken.
Okay, yes, the second sentence.
Yes, the black student success plan shall include the
Yep,
student's
yep.
career and academic choices.
Okay.
It's stated again in the red.
Thank you.
So board members, as we're doing policy work in the first reading, this would be where board members can ask questions or suggest revisions. Yes, Ms. Brown?
Could it start next year and the language says beginning with freshmen entering instead of it being?
You just slipped me a note saying
Oh, did you?
entering.
Okay. I was like, it could
Entering.
start next year, but it could begin with, the language could just change to beginning with the incoming freshmen for.
Yeah, so you can do it that way or graduating class of
Right.
2030, is it?
That way, it's
Whatever
like
it
it's
is.
fresh coming into
Yeah.
those students.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Tedros?
Yeah, so the first thing I want to say is that I very much love the idea of adding in a required exposure to the arts. As somebody who works professionally in adult education exclusively, I have been leaning more and more into the arts as a place to build skills of leadership, feedback, collaboration, and just expansive thinking. So I think it is just a beautiful thing to allow, to require exposure to. So I want to call that out. I do have a question about career pathways. Lots of research coming out that the half-life of skills is going down. So, skills that you learn in the professional workplace used to have a shelf life of 10 years. But with some of the disruption in technology, the half-life of skills is going to be closer to 2.5 years. So I'm just curious as to why we would be adding in like specific tracks for at the middle school level when there is so much volatility in careers at this moment.
I would think that our approach would be exploratory in nature,
Okay.
and it's not just content. So those skills that are not going to change are critical thinking,
Mhm.
problem solving, ability to work with others. I think foundationally, the career pathways have those as a focus, and then kids could, in an exploratory way, try on different content, knowing that in 6 years, those careers may be different. And the manufacturing is called out, I believe, in statute, but I'll have, there's a big push in the state of Connecticut of careers in manufacturing, so
Mhm.
you'll see that show up a lot.
So can I have you speak a little bit about what you mean by career pathways? Because I'm very pro to exploration. I love the idea of exposure. But when I think of a career pathway, and I will admit that I am very rooted in what I know of like professional career pathways, which may not be the same language, same words, but maybe not the same definition. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you mean when you say like create career pathways.
So we imagine, and this already exists to a certain degree at the high school, but at the middle school, creating a portfolio of electives that could fall categorically under something like the performing arts or STEM careers or even pre-med, humanities, and allowing kids and creating specified special electives that would be responsive to what is being seen around us. So they wouldn't necessarily be stagnant. And students could pick and choose through their elective courses on what they may want to explore.
Does that answer you?
I understand what you're saying, but I'm still a little bit confused. But I'm happy to open the floor for somebody else. I'm still a little bit confused of like, if you are in, let's say, a manufacturing career pathway, it sounds like you will have kind of special electives that align with manufacturing. I'm still getting stuck a little bit on how that leans to exploration and critical thinking of the landscapes of different careers offered to you.
Well, you don't have to just stay in the manufacturing lane. You could take a pre-engineering course, and then you can also take a performing arts course. You could bounce around the menu.
Okay.
I think at the high school piece, it's a little bit more prescribed, because the state has a whole career pathway track.
Yes,
Although-
at the high school level, it is, students start to select.
Ms. Brown?
Yeah, I guess when I'm hearing it, I'm sort of envisioning, I know it's like high school, like when they go to a tech school and they have different things they kind of explore, but they don't pick something until later, but they're not picking something, they're just kind of like, do I enjoy this? Is this something I'm interested in? And then maybe they're like, not so much, and then they choose a different pathway. Is that like, is it fluid? Like, if they entered into it in Q1, is there like a Q2 option? Is it something that
So we haven't
extends?
developed it.
Okay. That's what I was just wondering, like, is it something that's fluid where they had multiple options?
We don't have the resources to develop it right now,
I gotcha.
but I see it being fluid.
Okay.
I see it being very flexible. In middle school, it needs to be very we want kids just to try stuff on.
Right, that's, okay.
And not just only be exposed to the careers that maybe their small worlds are exposing them to, or the ones that they hear about all the time. We just want to expose the kids to different thinking. And it could include, some electives could include bringing professionals in. It could also include sending our kids out.
Experience.
But we haven't built it yet, because honestly, any progress we made with electives at the middle school, we took backward steps on last year. So.
Question? Did you still
I
have a
did.
question? Yeah, Ms. Evans?
No. So the student success plan, the district is creating a student success plan with the student in grade 6. What does that look like? Like, who's sitting down with the student? And I'm remembering my 12-year-old self and trying to imagine what I would have chosen. And I just want to, I'm just curious if, I hear you saying fluid and flexible, and that sounds great. But I think that the phrase student success plan feels like you're setting yourself on a path from the beginning, so maybe I'm just misunderstanding. What does it look like for the district to create a student success plan with a student?
So we actually have a piece of software that already exists, and we're already in the process of using it. We use it mostly at the high school, but it is a platform called Naviance, and Naviance helps with interest inventories, asking questions, and it's likely that students will have communication that goes home to families, letting them know that we're starting this conversation about success planning, exploring what your child is interested in, and it'll primarily be facilitated through a school counselor. So this is school counselor time, one-on-one. There's a possibility that there may be some whole group lessons on some things, maybe administration of an assessment whole group. And student success plan is something that comes out of the State Department of Education in Connecticut. I don't know that I would select that phrase to explain what we're creating, but we're required actually, starting in 6th grade, to have students develop students' success plans. So our vision is that a child is equipped at the end, when they graduate from here, to make a decision to do whatever they choose, whether it is four-year college, whether it is go to tech school, whether it is to serve our country. Our goal is not four-year college for every kid. Our goal is every kid is equipped to make that choice. So starting in 6th grade, we want kids to dream big and give them all of those options and try things on. So I think that's how career pathways and success plans marry, and just opening up a child's world. And I also, Ms. Evans, envision that we'll start using more technology in that area. I was just reading yesterday about students being able to use AI actually to explore a career, that they can put themselves digitally in a field where they may be doing that work. So I would envision that more of that will be infused as well.
And am I reading it correctly that they will, every student's success plan will include manufacturing?
I think that's
Including,
their
but
options.
not limited
Well,
to
it-
careers and
It's like an option, because I don't think all the
So
options
no,
are listed.
Does
if
it
there's a
shall
better,
provide
is there a
evidence?
clearer way of saying that, we're happy to too, but.
Yep. So
Okay.
provide evidence of career exploration in each grade, including but not limited to careers in manufacturing, so that exploration, so, I mean, I do read it that way, kind of, that,
All right, we'll go back and wordsmith that.
I think you had said manufacturing might be a requirement of the state. You had said that a few minutes ago, so,
We'll just figure out a better way to say that.
It's just an option for them to explore, not a requirement.
Yeah, it sounds like it's an option.
I think
Explore.
the state's intention is that every district give the option of manufacturing.
okay. So you'll clarify that then.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions?
Just one.
Yes.
This is a grammatical question.
Oh, sure.
Sorry, it's not very fun. 9 credits in the humanities, including civics, and at least a 0.5 credit in the fine and visual performing arts. Without a comma before and, I'm reading that as the 9 credits includes the 0.5 credit. But if you put a comma before and, which if my math is right, the 0.5 credit is in addition to the 9 credits. Is that wrong?
No, I
So
think
the
it's
0.5 is part of the 9.
Part of the 9.
Part of the 9, okay.
So would that be a comma after civics? No.
No.
No, you're good. I was trying to add up to 25 credits, and I see another half credit. Maybe I need to re-add that.
These are the minimums, so they can take other electives on top of these.
Yeah, just one of the
So
half
these are
has
the
to be
requirements.
Gotcha.
The art, the visual, fine visual performing arts of their electives.
Okay, so the arts are included
Yeah.
in that, in those 9 credits.
And they may have
Thank
10
you.
credits in the humanities.
Anything else from board members on this?
I think, and I know part of this is statute and part of this is regulation, but I would, as you're looking in the student success plan section, if there is a possibility to be more explicit with their intention of exploration as the primary goal, I do understand that there is limitations. I would love to see that more clearly stated.
Well noted. We'll do that. Thank you.
Everybody else good? I can't, Mr. Scobie, you're good? I can't,
Yep, I'm good.
it's hard to see you from where I am today. All right, so if there's nothing else on this policy will come back at our February 9th meeting for adoption. This is a case when we really do need to adopt it on the 9th because they're holding up the student program of studies on this to incorporate it. All right, so, do we have anybody in the audience who'd like to make public comment tonight?
I'm good.
Okay, no public comment. I'll dispense with the public comment statement. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, no opposition. We are adjourned at 9:08.
Every time you say that, I'm like so tempted to say no. It's just like right there, but don't do it, Jen, don't do it.